Okay, as we start our color correction series, I wanted to kind of touch base with this very simple tutorial that discusses the similarities between three of the major color correction tools that we have here in Photoshop. Now, granted, there are four, well, there are more than that, but the four primary color correction tools that I use and that most professionals use are, as you see over here, curves, color balance, selective color. The fourth one would be hue saturation, but hue saturation doesn't really tend to work for this particular image the way I'd like it to. So I want to kind of stick with these because the whole idea for this tutorial came about after speaking to one of my photographers. And what they do is oftentimes when they do a shoot, they'll take a couple of the images, the selects that they like from the shoot, and they'll do a color treatment on it, and they'll send me a Photoshop file and say, hey, can we try this effect here? Or if you know a better way to achieve this, let me know. And on top of their image, they would have some color moves, mostly selective color, color balance. It's very rare that I find a photographer that really knows how to use curves. And it's not a shot against photographers, mind you, but for some reason I think that people think that curves are very intimidating. And they're really not. They're actually very easy. But this tutorial, before I get off the point, is just based around their similarities. And the only difference between them essentially is, well, how can I describe it? If you want to take out a pinpoint target, you'd use a sniper rifle, let's just say. And that's what you'd use curves for. And if you want to do something a little broader, like blow off the side of a building with a bazooka, you may want to use color balance or selective color. That's essentially it. They do roughly the same thing, they just do it in different ways, and with some with less and some with more control. So we're going to start off with the curves. And this is an RGB image, but as you can see, it looks grayscale. And that's because I use equal colors of red, green, and blue, because it's the easiest way to kind of compare the three color tools that I have here. Now, we all know from my previous tutorials that equal colors of red, green, and blue make a gray color. Even though it's RGB, it's still a neutral color. As you can see here, as I move over here in the color space info palette, as I move my mouse, the colors are equal across the board. So we know this is neutral. So if I take the curve and I want to affect the curve, I don't want to affect the master channel RGB because it's just going to make it lighter and darker. Because again, we have equal colors of red, green, and blue. So if I just move the master, it's going to make it lighter and darker equally. So we're going to go to the red channel. Here's the midtones. Highlights up here, shadows down here. I'm going to move the midtone slider over to the left to bring out the red in the midtones. And you'll see the nice sloping curve that I made here in the curve dialog box. And you'll see that it essentially created that visually in this selected area. Because again, what I have here is I have a mask. This area is for curves. This area will be for selective color. And this area will be for, this is for selective color, and this one over here will be for color balance. So now that you're completely confused, back to curves. So what I did here is I've just affected this particular area. We look in the curves dialog box in the red channel, we'll see that I moved the midtones over to the left, and it made a nice sloping curve from the midtones, which is the meat of my move, and it fades off or falls off into the blacks and into the whites. Here we have this image, which is 0%, which is complete white, down to 100% black. And in an 8-bit Photoshop file like I have here, every channel has 255 levels of gray that constitute what's in that channel, the maximum amount of color that can be in that channel. So this is going to be our control study, the curve. Next we'll go to color balance, which is the center. This is the area that we're going to be affecting.